Hello, this is the recording for the module 2 for the Cesar Chavez Social Change Makers presentation. So here we go. Okay, so we're examining Cesar Chavez as a social change maker. Table of contents, what we're going to cover today. First one being review on Cesar Chavez biography, the life of the social change maker. Cesar Chavez as a social change maker, what was his motivation to act? And then number 3 is the importance of the study. Cesar as a stakeholder for modern day labor struggles. So Cesar's early life, he was born in Yuma, Arizona on March 31st, 1927. He was born to Mexican-American parents. Like many other people, his family lost land during the Great Depression and they moved to California to become migrant workers. He lived in various migrant camps and he attended school sporadically. It was later then he joined the Navy in World War II. And when he came back, he became a migrant farm worker, just like his parents, both in Arizona and then eventually a longer haul stay in California. La Causa. So this, starting with Cesar's initial dive into organizing, he trained as an organizer for the Community Services or CSO, Community Services Organization in California. And that's where he met Dolores Huerta. When we think of Cesar Chavez, we also immediately think of Dolores Huerta, which we'll talk a little bit more about her. But in 1965, he starts getting a lot of national attention as he begins leading the California grape boycott under the his organization NFWA, which then, with the help of Dolores Huerta, they co-create the UFW in 1971, which is the United Farm Workers, and that is still around today, which we are going to see in a little bit. So it continues. So he leads the union to fight for various causes. He gets a lot of fame as being one of another nonviolent organizers like MLK Jr. and Gandhi. And there's he comes into a little bit of a roadblock when under Reagan's administration, there's a lot of union busting. They actually lose membership in the union. So he has to find a cause to get people to join again. So in the 1970s, there was a lot more attention on pesticides, not only harming the earth, but harming the workers and people who eat the food, right? There's a book, Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, which kind of was one of the famous books that started talking about this issue. So he notices a lot of farmers are getting sick from pesticide poisoning, and he believes this is a cause to revitalize the union, and it does. So he continues boycotts and various strikes. He even goes on a hunger strike for 36 days. And his most famous one would be the grape strike, where he is banded with Filipino workers and they march to Sacramento. This is taking place during the late 60s, early 70s. I chose this picture. I think it's very cool. A lot of times we think just of Cesar Chavez leading this movement, but a lot of these social change makers work with other people who are just as vital. And it's an entire organization and group of people creating this change and this strike. Here he is with Dolores Huerta. Dolores Huerta is still around today. And Cesar Chavez passed in 1993, but up until the very end of his life, he was on the front lines fighting for farm workers' rights. So as a change maker, he delivered a lot of inspiring speeches. This is one for the primary source that I pulled, which for part of the lesson, we're going to dive into a little bit more later, but this is just a brief overview. So all my life, I've been driven by one goal, one dream, one goal, one vision: to overthrow a farm labor system in this nation, which treats farm workers as if they were not human beings. Farm workers are not agricultural implements. They are not beasts of burden to be used and discarded. That dream was born in my youth. He gave this in San Francisco in 1984. This was kind of towards the end of his change-making life. So some questions to consider. How does this speech show that Cesar is sincere and motivated to act? How has Cesar always been involved in the community he is fighting for? Important to understand as change makers, they're not people that just parachute in for a cause. They are deeply rooted and invested in this cause. What emotions do you get from reading this excerpt? And then how does Cesar rely on his community to become a change maker? Like what we said, banding together with the Filipino farm workers as well to go on strike, where they could have easily had different causes and seen each other kind of as enemies, someone wanting to get ahead instead, but they come together to fight for the same cause, for greater community good. So moving into, how does he still have influence and relevance today? So the UFW, this was in August of 2022. They launched a 355-mile march to Sacramento, following the same route and the tactics that Cesar Chavez did in the late 60s. The goal was urging the state assembly to pass the Agricultural Labor Relations Voting Choice Act, Assembly Bill 2183, basically making it easier for farm workers to organize. Gavin Newsom was not initially supportive, but he did eventually sign the bill. It was from President Biden that encouraged Newsom to sign the bill, citing advances for farm workers to negotiate better wages, conditions, and benefits. I found these pictures to be really cool. We still see the same logo for the United Farm Workers today. You know, if this picture was in black and white, it would look like it was the same strike that Cesar was leading with Dolores Huerta. And then this was one of the campaign posters that they used for the strike up to Sacramento, the march in August. And you obviously notice right away what a prominent figure Cesar Chavez is. We even see Dolores Huerta here. So I think this kind of brings up a lot of emotion, and we see the connection today, right? Couple references. And that is it for the presentation of information. Thank you.